one production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start today's session. As we announced at the last meeting, which was 3 weeks ago, today's meeting and the next two meetings are going to be devoted to building some very specific plans with the help of an architect who's going to facilitate the meeting. So I'm going to dispense with the typical introductory slides of what our mission and purpose is. I think we've seen it a dozen times, so we know exactly why we're here and what we need to do. So before doing that, what I'd like to do is introduce John Fast, who has a few comments to make.
Absolutely.
John,
thanks, Jeff.
Come on up here.
Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon. First, I want to let everyone know the board cannot provide you a budget target because we're in the middle of our new annual budget planning process and cannot currently agree on one item without knowing the whole picture. So it's our fiduciary responsibility to know the whole picture and know it's all possible. I do believe that the entire board believes the PIF budget published in November of 2021 is no longer relevant. But that doesn't change our financial picture. That just says we don't think that budget is relevant, and that's why we're here. So where does that leave us? Well, I think the changes are questioned slightly, but we could stay the course. With Marlene's expert advice, we can flesh out the range of costs and likely construction schedules for various options that we have been discussing. Each of you then can then evaluate whether the option meets your group's expectations and what compromises your group is willing to make. Now, I took a chance and I put down a summary of 3 options that was not to be exclusive. So I'm going to suggest something. I put down the options were renovate Mountain View in its existing footprint, build indoor-outdoor pickleballs at Mountain View, and build a new appropriately sized theater at Lakeview, build a new appropriately sized theater at Mountain View, and expand pickleball, outdoor pickleball as originally envisioned in the original discussions. Now, what I'm going to suggest is that each of you send an email, like Susan, to each other as to what you see the options are. So that it's not me I'm trying to summarize, not hijack. Okay? Okay. And I think each of the options involves some kind of pool or fitness center. One of the things I think we've agreed on, we're shooting for the wow factor. We want this to be something of a showpiece that when people see, they say, wow. They say, geez, they got it right. As I said, I think there's variations on any of these options. And we'll discuss that with Marlene and her team. And I will tell you that this process is going to involve compromises. Maybe. If you believe we can build everything everyone has asked for in our budget, it's not possible. But the board, with your recommendation, will fully consider all views, and I fully anticipate that there's going to be majority and minority, maybe more than one minority view that comes out of this committee. And that's okay, because that's the way democracy works, that's the way committees work. So, with that.
No.
Wait just a moment.
Yes? Jean, with that.
Thank you. You girls always forget me.
Okay, so I'm not turning off the place.
Let's get you up there.
Always forget me. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We do like to start on time, which we accomplished. Please remember, no sidebar conversations. It's when you're participating from afar. It's very hard to hear what everyone is saying. please silence your phones. I'll try to remember to tell you to turn them back on at the end. I can't guarantee it. Our guest today will not be allowed to speak unless I am told otherwise. We do have a member of the press with us. His name is Brent Ruffner. He's sitting over there. Marlene mentioned that she told me and I forgot. Just a second. Let me confer with her.
Sidewalks. Oh, yeah. We just did the script last night.
Or we forgot already.
Okay. Needed to get this one straight for sure. She does welcome participation as she's giving her presentation. You don't have to wait till the end. One other thing, because I have been sitting there like they are, we can see you all. So just so that you know, keep your smiles on your faces. Marlene is the founder and principal of Marlene and Marzian and Associates Architects, formed in 1995. The firm is a regional practice with offices in Phoenix, Arizona, and Escondido, California. Her firm is known for its design excellence, project performance, and as a leader in integration of sustainable design practices. They create finely considered and inventive buildings that contribute to the regeneration of place. They engage the owner, users, consultants, contractors, and other stakeholders as appropriate to develop comprehensive building solutions that optimize facilities for the project uses. Their completed projects show their diversity as they range from public, private, higher education, civic, medical, historic preservation, commercial, and residential clients.
It's real hard to hear with
It's
that.
hard to hear that noise in the background.
I just muted it.
They just muted it.
Okay, we muted it. Their reputation within the market has been helped primarily by the quality of the work and the repeated recognition with design awards, sustainability rankings, and past client recommendations. Marlene is a faculty associate at the School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture at Arizona State University, Herbiger Institute for Design and the Arts. She currently serves as a member of the Alumni Board of Governors of the University of Michigan Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning. With that, let's welcome our guest, Marlene, and her associate.
Hi, everybody. I always get nervous when someone tells where I went to school. So hopefully nobody's from Ohio State. Okay. And I'm very happy to be here with me. Stacia Ledesma from my office. And Stacia will be presenting with me. Stacia, you want to say a few words?
I'm actually from the Midwest too, so just go Huskers.
Okay. Can you guys hear me fine without this?
No.
In Sun City.
That was very, very, tentative answer. Okay. It's my pleasure to be here. One of the things that is really important about our process, and especially today, is for us, the idea about today is to have a shared conversation that we evaluate as we are going through the discussion to see what conclusions we can make as we proceed through what we're describing, and what you're describing is what you want. So typically what we're going to do is we're going to make some actual notes, and we're going to put primary alternatives and goals that you tell us on the wall behind us. The idea would be is not to just for us to take notes and then go away and come back and say, okay, did we capture it right? The idea is together to discuss alternatives and establish a potential direction for each item that we're talking about, okay? So for me, it's very interactive. This is not a formal presentation. We are here to facilitate the sharing of the ideas and to try to optimize what the potential options would be for each site. Okay? Can you make that full screen?
Sure.
No, that is not the full slide. Okay, that's close enough. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is an expedited process, folks. We have 2 different sites we're going to look at in terms of what wants to be done at each site in terms of the activities. There's going to be a wide range of potential for each. We've been asked to provide an overall site use plan that could show diagrammatically how the site could be modified, so then we can go to the board and see if there's an agreement to proceed in a particular direction. So today, we're going to go through briefly the 2 sites and then focus today on Mountain View. And then next week, we'll be focusing on Lakeview in terms of alternatives and potential direction. And then the following week, we will then come together to decide amongst them what is the priorities that can be done at each site that provide what you want and you're comfortable with assigning to a particular site or to both sites. Okay? The idea would be then we'll do some general budget numbers, so then we will go with a preliminary site use diagram to the board on the 28th to see if there's consensus about an overall direction for just basic site use definition. Okay? So with that, what I'd like to know is, do any of you have any questions on that process? No? Okay. All right. So let's go to the next slide then, please. Okay. So this is Lakeview, obviously, and what we're doing is we've done a preliminary evaluation of the buildings in square footage, and I'll just tell you in general, there's not an issue with overall parking accommodation or anything on either site, so I'm not going to go to that in any detail today, okay? Next slide. So Lakeview has these primary outdoor activity spaces, as you know, swimming, tennis, shuffleboard, lawn bowling, and mini golf. Next. The primary parking areas are aligned with the form of the building, okay? And they are shown in the red there in terms of the central parking, very well accessible, and there's some open land available at Lakeview, obviously that's not used, that could be potential for other uses. Next. The pedestrian circulation is fairly clear, and the idea about here, one of the best features is the lake view, that right now probably is not optimized, right? It's a really fantastic place.
Correct.
And when I went there, I was saying, wow, we could do so much with this, and even some minor new construction would do a lot to really optimize that wonderful site, okay? Next. And then Mountain View. So now Mountain View is at one of the smaller sites, and it's pretty much almost fully utilized, okay? So here you see the primary buildings, the 2 buildings, what's the auditorium shape, and then the area with the fitness, and the restrooms. Next.
Can you make the screen bigger or make the image bigger? Thank you.
Okay. So these are the 2 primary sections. I don't have a
Laser.
I don't have a laser yet.
Somebody does. You will shortly.
They can figure out how to turn it on.
I actually don't mind pointing if you guys don't mind that weird light in my face, okay? So here are the 2 primary buildings. So for a site of this size and this activity, there's a relatively small area for the restrooms and showers, and for the fitness area. Let's go to the next slide.
There you go. This button there. Yeah, I know. Sorry, guys. It's the best I can do.
Okay, so outdoor activity areas are primary at this site. There is swimming, very, very generous pool area around it. The tennis courts, which are B here. Pickleball courts, lawn mowing, and mini golf. Okay? Next. Parking on the perimeter allows for that central focus for all the activities, which is actually pretty nice. So you're not crossing parking to connect to different activities. Next. The circulation, this is the main kind of front entryway. The circulation is fairly clear. There's some areas here that I think have a lot of potential right now, but they're fairly open and not very well developed. So there's a lot of potential even with what you've got right now at Mountain View. Next. And so here's Mountain View overall. Next. Okay, and so here's the view of the buildings. So, like I said today, we're going to focus on Mountain View and see if we can get a point to establish what are the priorities that could fit and work optimally at Mountain View. And so what I'm starting with right now is your existing buildings, okay? Who loves this building?
If we kind of fix it a little bit.
Okay. Tell me what you like the most about this building.
I love the architecture of it and the history of the quality of the Sun City.
Okay, so there's it's like a historic element. Okay. So then, do you think that would you be open to adjusting it for current uses and to optimize it in terms of some daylighting and alternatives?
Sure.
Okay.
As long as you kind of kept the feeling of the building. Like a little geometric.
Can you speak up?
I'm sorry. That's okay. As long as you wouldn't, there's architecturally when you pull up, you see the entranceway and you see all the little shapes and structures of the building. To me, it speaks to the history of Sun City. And so if you could maintain some of that to where maybe you came through it and you opened to a courtyard or whatever, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but the idea of just tearing that whole building down doesn't work for me.
Since the microphone is here, I don't have a particular fondness for the shape of the building or the historical element, but I think that I'd like to see it potentially refreshed and renewed and used rather than turned down.
So I'll tell you my perspective is one of the best things we can do overall is to keep an existing building and see if there can be modifications done to optimize how it works now and still do a major upgrade, which can be quite different. And it can look different also, but still respect kind of the history of the location, okay? And that's something that is very common in our practice. And so we have a lot of past projects that are quite old in terms of their sites and buildings. And so part of what we show is how we can optimize what's there, potentially rebuild portions, but not start over. So let's go to one of the things I'll say here that we could really look at is how can we make this entry image more welcoming? Because I know it has a history, so the history thing is strong for you. But I think we could also say, can we make it more welcoming so it's not like a wall, right, to everybody? And I think that would be a huge impact in many, many ways, just how you feel going there and how there could be different activities connecting to the site. Okay? Next. Similarly here, there is a lot of potential with this very large pool and the connections. Next. But the actual physical characteristics of where you are unfortunate. There is plenty of real estate to do something wonderful there, folks. There's enough land to really adjust how you can use that space, make it shaded, make it more interactive and welcoming. And I am sharing this to you just as you're getting from me. Here's my perspective of what we're observing. when we go to the potential for your site. Okay? Make sense? So this is a lot of real estate, guys, okay?
Sure is.
And right now, that has tons of potential that we see, okay? And there's a number of things that we could suggest and that we're going to talk to you about, right? And it has nothing to do with starting everything over, but it could be about really changing what is the assignment and the use of space in that area and the building next to it. Next. Here's the auditorium. So now, right now, the biggest thing about the auditorium is, in our view, we were not part of the design, okay? It appears to be a compromise in many ways, okay? It appears, that was a nice word. Okay, so what does that mean though, guys? Okay, part of the criteria about using something flexibly is how can it really be adapted fairly easily? And right now, there's some difficulty with this one. And one of the first thing is the flooring. Like if you want to really have dances, classes, etc., you need a appropriate wood floor assembly that does not, no?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That does not ruin your legs, okay? This is not difficult, folks. This is very common. We do this a lot. It's not like putting wood directly on the concrete. It's an assembly that allows for the appropriate level of movement so that you are not, in fact, jumping on concrete, okay? That one thing alone would make a very big difference in terms of how you feel and optimize using this space. Just as one example, for instance, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The other thing is that there's all kinds of things we can do for acoustics, okay? And acoustics today, there's lots of very much better acoustic performing products that we can implement in shapes and form that could allow some better performance in that space without changing the space fundamentally, okay? So that's one thing that you might want to consider for this space, right? Acoustics for both what's happening if there's a performance or if there's a band or if there's some other function. There is also one really good option when you have a flat floor. You can separate the space if you want to. So right now, that space is not able to be separated. That is not highly difficult. It is, if it's it's an investment, right? But I'm throwing out some things like this for you in terms of a third person's observation of what we're seeing about your facility in terms of potential. Typically, when we look at these projects, we don't assume the best thing is to start over and do something that we want to do a new building for. That's not necessary. It can be fantastic and meet your needs without starting totally over. That makes sense? Next. And here's the entry. So, folks, this is a really important building. Let's make it awesome. Let's make it so when you come in, right, if we keep this building, that it's appropriate, you can sit down too if you want. Stacia's gonna help me with some things, but I'm gonna let her take a break. So the thing is that the things that are going on in this building have a lot to do with modifications that have been done over the many, many years that it's been there, right? And so now you probably go in there and you don't really see them, but sometimes you kind of do, right? So all this stuff that's going on here, this is fairly easy to adjust, but that first impression, it does not look like you are going through the front door of a major facility, right? So these are the kinds of things that we can discuss with you. And the key thing for me right now is our evaluation of this building is not about, is it good to keep like it is? Our evaluation is, what are the basic bones and mass and potential of potential improvement for alternative uses and better overall use? Okay? Next. This is a very, very good example, okay? So let's say you don't have a lot of people doing fitness at this site. This facility is not really good, no matter how many people you have doing fitness, right? Okay? Because it's crowded, it's dark, and I don't think it's inviting, right? And the flexibility to walk around. Those elements are fairly easy to accomplish. This kind of space is not complicated to do. So the thing we're going to talk about with you is what are some options about physical fitness that we could do and still have physical fitness on this site? And what are those options? What could those options be? Does anybody here want to remove physical fitness from this site?
It's underused, most of them are. I do a lot of physical fitness and the overwhelming majority of them are underused. Our city is not that big, it's not too difficult to drive a couple miles.
So part of what happens with this kind of facility, even if it's not really big, the idea would be, thank you, the idea would be if we can make it welcoming and appropriate for the equipment and the clearances. No matter who you are, you don't really want to be here doing the bike with someone right here. It's just basically uncomfortable. You want a little bit of a room, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can it also be done where it's targeted to a specific type of fitness? Let's say it's more cardio, or it's more strength training. So instead of crowding 9,000 pieces of equipment in it, you pick certain pieces of equipment that when you go to that center, you know this is what you're working on.
Well, here's what's important about your question. The facility should not be equipment specific. So the idea, the bigger idea for us today in the next 3 weeks is to design something for the long term. It's not just for today, it's for how can we make it efficiently done so that it can in fact be changed easily, okay? So how do we provide power, communication, network, etc. So in fact, what you're going to do in 10 years may be different from today, that's okay. You see what I'm saying? Yes.
Yeah, it's true. We've already invested on a trial basis. We have digital equipment in some. So we're looking at the next generation. So the equipment that's in there is probably likely going to be changed out with more high-tech digital equipment. So it's going to be interactive for the user. And for light, there's no natural light that comes in there. That's part of the problem in this facility.
That is part of the problem. And natural light and ventilation, even natural ventilation where we live, folks, is very, very effective and a significant part of our year if it's done correctly and well, okay? So part of the other problem is that it's a very small space. There's a lot of other alternative types of activities going on there that are compromising the space. So what we need to do is establish kind of what is the optimum way that we could accommodate fitness within a space size and flexibility that works for you. Yes?
Are you talking about using the existing space or expanding the space?
Yes. Okay, we're going to go there.
Okay.
Okay, and I said that because that's part of what we're going to go through. What I want to explain to you is we've spent time looking at your facilities, and I'd like to hear from you. If there's something that I'm talking about that doesn't make sense to you, I'd like to know, so I can expand on it a little bit more. Anything so far?
You're talking about, I'm sorry, they didn't hear me. Bashful as I am. You're talking about reusing the existing building to some extent.
We shall see.
Okay, but that's a possibility that
Yes.
you're presenting. In your past experience, what needs to be done? You talk about the bones of the building. The bones of the building also include the electrical, the heating, the water, and all that, which is 40 years old. How do you accommodate that for the new requirements that you're going to have today and 10 years from today?
Right, fantastic question. And so one of the key things about the overall approach would be to look at the utility service and the connection points and the utility service over time, I would expect that we're going to propose a improved utility connection in every respect. And that means we invest one time for the utility improvements that would serve the ultimate potential build-out that we're going to talk about of the campus. And we locate where that should be so that it does not have to be moved later. And we size the primary connections so that they can serve the ultimate plan build-out, just for the primary service.
We have a question on
So in terms of,
We got a Susan question.
Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I'm hearing strictly how we take what we currently have and update it a little bit, make it look brighter and friendlier and newer, and go with that. Is that the only plan we're going to hear today? To what happened to our plans to renovate and do a lot more for Mountain View than just doing basic little updates to make it look a little bit better before we move on?
thank you, Susan. I'm sorry that's the way it's sounding. That's not my intent. So what I'm explaining is what we're observing and what the potential is, and as we plan for the future, what's important to consider, what is the ultimate size and activities we need to plan for, and what would be the options that we could do that with. So no, we're not just looking at keeping everything.
So we're going to hear options on how we eliminate some of these buildings and replace them with something better?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing today is getting from you what the goals are, so then we can study that and provide you with an alternative that reflects those options that you might consider. And Susan, part of where we're going to start there here is to get a sense of what are those activities and get a sense of the overall consensus about activities so we can appropriately recommend an option in terms of the site use development.
Okay, so I raised my hand before when you asked this question, but per the architecture of the building and the history of the building, I can't imagine there's an uglier, less architecturally valid building in Sun City than Mountain View. It's basically just a long box with a little door for an opening. So I do not see the validity of saying, let's save the building because of its architectural value, or it's this, you know, it's just an ugly little thing. That's my opinion, so just wanted to say
I assume that when you're talking about options, you're looking at a variety of things, but two big things you're probably looking at is schedule and cost.
So right now, what I'm looking at is functions and capacity, so then we can establish the priority for each site.
Okay.
That is the first primary function that we have to do, from which then we can establish how could it be phased if that's required, and what would the cost be. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
I think you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
No, I'm sorry, our guests can't speak yet today.
Yes.
It's just the
What are your
committee.
impressions of
I
that
announced it
schedule?
in the beginning.
Okay. So
You did go back there, didn't you?
yeah, I went back. Okay. So on the backstage, there is a lot of limitation. You know, the fly is basically not really a fly in terms of, you know, full function, et cetera. So what's going to have to happen is to establish, is it really a fully functioning theater with full fly, et cetera, or is it going to be modified so that it's primarily an auditorium with a modified function for the backstage? So the backstage has also very little storage. So if you're going to actually do productions back there, it's tough to have other functions and still have a production equipment there and not be, you know, out in the open. Tell me your point of view.
Well, I don't agree with the word you said.
Okay.
Basically, because what thought we started out with for the very beginning that there was going to be a performing arts center, and it was just where are we going to put it? And now we're hearing you're going to remake Mountain View that isn't compatible with much of anything. And I don't understand. And it's like, at what point does the cost of remodeling and redoing all this outweigh the cost of tearing it down and rebuilding?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Right now, I have not said, I do not have any preconception about what we're going to do. I'm just going through the buildings that they are right now and sharing with my observation right now. Then we're going to go through what is all of your point of view in terms of what is the potential ultimate use that you'd like to see at this site. And then what's appropriate for that use. Okay? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. Next. Okay. So, this is important. I know it's not, one of the main spaces, but folks, right, I think for sure we've got to find a way to good lockers and showers, right? Okay. Maybe within the next, that looks something within this decade. Okay. Next. This is also quite compromised in terms of the space. It is very awkward in terms of the way that the floor is, etc. If you want to retain any sort of pool spot inside, we have to, I think, redo this somehow or rebuild it. Okay. Next. We just wanted to know if you were aware that at one time a scheme was done to modify the auditorium to be a fully operating auditorium, performance hall.
Does that mean fixed seating?
These actually could be either. It's a sloped element. You could do seats that are movable, but
When was this?
When was that? Yeah.
1995, right? Yes.
Is this a slope floor or flat floor?
It's done so that when these seats are implemented, they are sloped very slightly.
But the floor is not sloped?
No. We don't have the section. We just want to share this because we thought it was important just so you understand kind of what we've discovered. There was at some point, some time ago, this study. And of course you see there's other additions, right, to make this a functional theater space. And that includes new entryways, realistic backstage areas for doing shows, and then a whole new foyer, etc. And so this was done as a retrofit within the existing space, is our understanding. And so it's just an interesting item to share with you all that, there was at one point a consideration of this being modified. This is a low slope floor, so it could be done within the existing height. Okay, next. Okay, so then, can you go to the next slide? Okay, I want to talk about something else before we go to that other slide about what you want. So, sometimes people wonder, okay, what can you really do with an older building? Can you really update it?
If you want to, Steve, here, I'll hold it. You need to come over here so they can see the slides still.
And this is just a very complicated existing building at a community college here in Arizona, Mesa Community College. And it is 7 buildings. They had very little budget. They had a lot of small, tight spaces that functioned very poorly. There was a lot of problems with shared spaces and collaboration. I'm only showing this really quickly as an example of, how you can go in and evaluate what can we do with existing land and space and improve how it works in a cost-effective manner that optimizes how you work. Okay? Next. So, well, actually go back. Go back one. So what I want to say is these are all the existing buildings. They're all masonry, okay? And there were these exterior courts. There was no real visual way that you could see where you're going to go into. And all these areas were highly closed in and not of a size that could be used very well between the functions. This is for student center, gathering space, study spaces, etc. at Mesa Community College. You know about that? Okay, next. Okay, so just a couple things to show. One is that here's that site plan with the area of it. And part of what we did is at the very front, we made the new entrance and student center with a visible welcoming element that comes in and creates the main visual entry point to the campus from the parking lot where there was none. This is what it looked like before. So when you came to the campus before, didn't really look like you were entering the campus. It looked like you were in the back door. So the idea was, how do we create a welcoming place? By the way, keep in mind, nothing about this is saying that we want to do this for your project. I'm just giving you a quick example of a very difficult, low-budget project, okay, and the kind of goals with existing buildings and very limited new construction. This is how the buildings looked when we went there. They're small masonry buildings closed in with some exterior circulation between them. What we did, very economically, we opened that all up with a whole new connection point. So now what used to be two small buildings is one more flexible building with a much better ceiling space and all new utilities, all new services, all new electric, all new communication. Next. Next. It's the same one, huh?
That's it. We're at the end.
Oh, that's the last one. Okay. Okay, so just a couple examples. So we have a lot of experience in the existing campuses. Let's go and start now in one of our conversations about what we'd like to do. Can we go 2 slides up? One more? Okay. So we've been told that these are the kind of the numbers about what's happening right now on campus. Okay? So before I go into here, based on what I've said so far, anybody want to have a comment or a suggestion about what we've talked about so far? Okay. Yes.
How would you go about establishing that the building can be renovated?
It can be renovated.
It can?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Okay, so here's the thing, folks. There's 3 key elements. I didn't bring those in. Anyway, so structure, right, and systems. Right now, we would have an actual full evaluation structurally of each building before we tell you for sure everything is fine. We have walked the buildings in general. There's no evidence of structural failure, okay? Folks, that's the first thing we want to look at. Are we even talking about something that's worth saving at all? That's number 1. And then even if a building is worth saving, if the dimensions and the proportions and the use are just not of a size that merits saving and compromising how you might build new, that's also something that we wouldn't do. We would not recommend. Okay? And right now, that second building is quite small, quite problematic in terms of pretty much proportions, services, and uses. Yes?
I just have one question. On the main auditorium, we were told that it had asbestos in it and
Probably.
that it was probably just not worth saving. So can you address that? Is that part of this
Okay, so
structure?
asbestos abatement is very common in every building of this period. That is not a predeterminant for not doing it. You empty the building, you get a whole team together, and you get rid of it one time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
How about flat roof?
What about the flat roof?
Is it in condition that it should be saved, or would you rip that out?
So I haven't been on the roof, but we would go on it and see what the condition is. So right now, are you having evidence of leaks from the roof?
Yes.
From the auditorium roof? Yeah. And so what we go through is, what happens a lot in roofs, there's poor overall maintenance and upkeep in terms of the way that the roof is, the condition the roof is in. Usually, unless there is a structural problem that is fairly easy to adjust, that is one of the key things that we would need to evaluate at the beginning to see what is the condition. Okay? Did that answer your question? Okay, so one of the things we would like to do right now is start with what do you want to do at Mountain View? Let's start with swimming, okay? Should the swimming be retained at Mountain View?
Not as existing.
I did see that, thank you.
Okay. Can't do it?
No.
Thank you.
What's the problem? Okay, and regarding the not as existing, what does that mean to you?
We as a committee had voted earlier about at Mountain View, 2 pools would be, there were options presented, and we wanted a resort pool and we wanted a sports pool that would accommodate volleyball and would accommodate lanes. I think that's what the committee had accepted and agreed upon before.
Presented.
Okay, so what I heard is swimming is a priority with 2 main functions. Is that correct? Did I get it right?
Well,
Yes?
to add to that, the large pool would be also for aqua fitness. So we have a huge amount of attendance for aqua fitness. That's why the pool dimensions would be important.
Is that the sport size or the resort size?
No, so it'd be the resort one. Aqua fitness.
There before was 3 pools, not 2.
But a point I would
That's what I was going to bring up, but also we would need bars on the pools because some of our classes involve holding on to the bars.
No problem, yeah.
Regarding his comment about the sports pool, currently the volleyball, water volleyball that I understand now is being done at the Oakmont Center, and that seems to be satisfactory, which would then indicate we don't need it at this location.
That's not what we decided.
No,
Well, I don't know, but nothing's been decided. I'm just saying what the observation's been. Is there somebody here from water volleyball? This gentleman right here next to me. Let's hear from him.
What do you think about water volleyball?
We need more time in the pool, and I know Oakmont is stretched because of the usage. Our club has indicated that we would like to stay at Oakmont if we got some concessions, some shaded areas, storage, some minor patio furniture maybe, some more, little things like that. We love Oakmont.
So Oakmont is preferred.
Yes.
Aqua Fitness also likes it there because it's got a new water system. I don't know if that would be possible in redoing pools.
Okay. And then what are the things that you wanted to add at Oakmont?
Well, we'd like some shaded areas, or maybe some kind of sunscreen, because the sun's a problem certain times of the year. The way we look into the sun, the way the courts are situated. And the courts are situated about as best as they can be when you consider the year-round factor of the sun.
Okay.
But if we had some shaded areas, some patio furniture, some storage, little things like that, because it's got the jacuzzi, the locker rooms are right there. We have an auditorium. I mean, it's a nice little place, and the people that work there are fantastic. And I'm not saying they're not fantastic anywhere else. It's just that we love being there.
Yes.
You can check this up there. Multi-purpose auditorium will cover volleyball, basketball, pickleball inside, fitness area. It'll cover a lot of different clubs and not just one club, which it should not be used for one, no, nothing should be used for one club.
Okay. Do you mind if I go one by one? Please? Okay, yes.
Where we got down to 2 pools was the lap swimmers didn't have a regulation lap pool. The pools that they have curved ends, or they're not the right depth or whatever. So we said, okay, we can do the lap pool, maybe 2 or 3 lanes, but that pool should also be constructed in a way that if water volleyball explodes, it could be used as a water volleyball pool as well. That's how we got to 2 pools.
Does that make sense?
If we had Oakmont as our first choice, and it was dedicated to this as being a sports pool, we would stay at Oakmont because we could have more time there and divide our time up amongst our club members more evenly.
So if you were to say Oakmont became the volleyball pool, does that mean anyone who wouldn't go in and swim or do anything else in it wouldn't be able to do it?
That's above my pay grade.
But I'm just saying, something like where they got.
That's the challenge, right?
When we
Because it's
had,
unfair to people that live near Oakmont, that they couldn't go swimming because you guys own a volleyball pool.
I'm not saying we would own it, I said we prefer to stay there if we got a little bit more time.
That was a conflict.
No, I was just going to say, you're coming in after many, many weeks of us discussing this. What we found out quite early is that this is not just a Mountain View and Lakeview issue, that this involves a whole lot of things. We have got activities that are growing quite rapidly, so if you prepare for the future, you've got to have some growth potential there. We've already talked about and reduced what we would like to see. For example, they were talking about 3 pools. Now they're down to 2 because we just realized that wasn't going to happen. So you're coming into this not having the benefit of this months of discussion that we've had, that it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It is not just Lakeview and Mountain View.
Okay, so then would you be okay with us looking at what could be optimized at Mountain View? Because right now, we are not looking at the entire set of recreation centers. We're looking at what is the potential vision for site use.
I think the coordination between your objectives, which are supposed to be ours, and our background knowledge is that we would like to know, out of the activities that we've talked about, the ones that are growing, the ones that need new space, wherever it happens to be, can they fit in Mountain View? Can they fit in Lakeview? Either remodeling or replacing, whatever choice seems to be the best.
Yes, I understand, and that is our goal, to help you visualize and show you diagrammatically what could fit at Mountain View and Lakeview. Did I not answer your question?
Yes and no.
So today, I have not been given, folks, a list of a decided set of activities for Mountain View or Lakeview. What I've been told is that that has not been established. And so what I'm trying to do today, and just so you understand, I don't have a point of view about
I understand that.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do, and what's important about this low-tech way I'm writing these things down, is I don't think it helps for me to take notes and then go away and come back and you guys say, I never agreed with that, I can't believe that's in the notes. What we're going to do is we're going to put these things up. That does not mean that that's a decision. What we're going to do is after we go through each of the functions, some of these are going to come down. We're going to say that's not going to be our priority for this site.
Yeah, I understand the process. I just made my comment because I don't feel you understand all the work that's gone in prior to, which is a handicap to you, because it's a blind spot there for you. We have looked at a much, much bigger picture and are trying to narrow it down. That was my only comment.
Well, I think that that's fantastic because then you have a really kind of in-depth idea about what you might want to focus on for each of those sites.
We do.
Yeah.
I think we all have a lot of in-depth ideas, but they're not all the same.
Give her a chance.
So I think what we need to do now is sort them out.
Question from
Give her a chance.
No, my comments have been positive. I don't know what I mean. I said give her a chance.
I think our biggest question in this whole thing was, we want to build a performing arts center. Will it fit at Mountain View? Will it fit at Lakeview? And until we know that, we don't know where we're going. We know what we'd like to do, but we don't know where we have space.
But when she says space, she's talking about all these other activities.
Right, the space for the other things.
So let me, you know what, this is on the list, okay? Right here. Okay? I'm at the top. Okay? I'm just gonna-
We are not building an auditorium, we are building a performing arts center.
We will rename it. Okay? Okay, we will rename it.
We haven't decided we're building a performing arts center.
We've decided, Jeff.
You have.
Right.
So, okay.
I have not.
So
I think a number of other people have not either. so we shouldn't just jump to that.
If you don't mind, this is what I'm trying to do, guys, and I understand that I have not been in all your meetings, okay? So what I bring right now is a very open, right, transparent methodology for us to just put things up there. We're not going to make a final decision today. But then what's important is we have a list of this discussion about what are the priorities, folks, okay? And then I can show you, okay, what the impact is and the potential of fitting other things on this site, and then what happens on Mountain View. We're not making a decision today. We're looking at what are the criteria which are going to drive alternatives.
Susan, first question.
Okay, could I say something about the pools? After many meetings and reviewing the data that came through on usage and future usage possibilities, the committee talked about the pools and came up with the thought that we needed a resort pool and a combined sport pool, combined as in it would be able to be used for volleyball as well as lap and exercise, and that's where we were. And I think looking to the future, to say, hey, you know, we're happy with volleyball at Oakmont, and that's fine, I'm glad they're happy there, but I know there is a conflict there in usage, as in, you know, if they want more time there, then somebody has to move somewhere else to be able to get their time. We need another pool in order to give us future usage and flexibility for the different groups that want to utilize the sports pool, something with a flat surface.
What does she see? Does she see me standing here?
She will in a second.
No, you don't have to.
Steve, turn it 90 degrees. That's forward now. Yep.
So what I'm doing, can you read that?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank you.
Can I use that for a minute?
Doesn't go very far.
Useless, okay. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, okay. So what I think's been alluded to it, at one meeting, we did a straw vote, and the majority ruled on basically the things our Ben's telling you. And so I feel bad that you weren't given the results of that straw vote, because it would give you a little bit of what we're talking about. Yes, I realize nothing's been absolutely voted on. However, based on all the conversations we've had for the past couple months, a straw vote was taken that did indicate the resort pool and the sports pool. I think it's great volleyball would be happy to stay open because I want to keep the convention golf. So if you're going to have to give up my space to put a pool in, hey, I vote for it. But I think we should let you finish what you started and then hold a discussion to it and stop interrupting your process of presentation to us.
What's key for me, everybody, just to understand, is this is not about me having a point of view. This is important for us to help share what has been discussed, and I know that there's been a lot of discussions, and it looks very simple, and but I'll tell you, over time, this methodology helps because we can start moving things out of there, and we can say, what's the first priority and what's the second priority? We don't have to remember it all, we're just noting it right now. So just bear with me on that, if you could. And yes. Hi, Karen.
Karen? You're muted. There you go.
Okay, so I'm not sure that I'm hearing and following everything, but I just, with respect to the pool issue, do want to say that we had a straw vote about whether we should have 2 or 3 pools, and I actually would have liked to have expanded that to say, do we want 1 or 2 or 3 pools? The needs of a rapidly growing volleyball club were actually what originally drove the desire to have an additional pool beyond the resort pool at Mountain View. And increasingly, it seems as though that may not be necessary. And I would just like to go on record as having So Susan, I sort of hate to just outright contradict you, but your statement was that there was too much competition for time and use at the Oakmont pool, and as a result, somebody would have to move. I actually don't believe that's true. I've kind of done a deep dive into Oakmont pool usage, and that would be a topic for another discussion, but it is not necessarily true that somebody would have to be displaced, and the statement that we need an 8th pool I would call highly debatable, especially as we're looking at some financial restrictions that we may not have been as aware of a year ago in terms of ongoing operational and maintenance costs and so forth. I think that needs to be looked at more closely, and it may be such that we say actually 7 pools are adequate for Sun City and we don't need to build an 8th one.
Yes.
I just want to make it clear that the water volleyball is making an offer just to stay where we're at. If it's for the good of the whole, or it's a concession, or we just love it there, you can put your own label on it. We don't need to move to Mountain View if we don't have to. If we're included in Mountain View, fine, we'll go to Mountain View. But if there's a way that we can stay at Oakmont, we'll stay at Oakmont. It doesn't matter to us.
I think what I'm hearing is that the sport pool should be flexible to allow for alternate functions.
Exactly.
That's what you're
Okay,
hearing.
and so
That's
there's
what we
nothing
do.
about water volleyball that can't be done in a sport pool. It just might need to be scheduled. Did I get that right?
Yeah, we came up with the lane pool, and we said it should be constructed in a way that volleyball could be played there if the need was there. Not just making a perfect lane pool and nothing else.
There is currently 2 lanes at Oakmont for laps, and we allow swimmers in there while we are playing volleyball. Also, the jacuzzi's open, but to non-volleyball.
There was also the question on water temperature.
Hold on. Is this a good goal? You don't have to decide today. Is this a good goal to have?
Yes.
Why not?
I don't see that they need another lap pool. I mean, they don't use Mountain View as a lap pool now.
That's not true.
Okay, we'll come back to this one. Okay, if I could, guys. Okay, I'm going to go to pickleball. Has anybody heard about pickleball? Okay. All right, folks. So you don't want us to get rid of the pickleball courts, I take it, right? Okay. Nobody's even laughing. That's pretty bad. Okay. All right, you have 7 courts right now. Pickleball is booming, right? So without making any judgments, let's say you don't know what you could fit or what would have to be moved. Based on the current use of pickleball, is it overused? Is it not providing the number of courts that you need?
I think we need to add some.
Okay, and so what's the sense of that? Do you think you need like right now you have 7. Would 10 be good
No.
as a starting point?
12.
12?
14.
So almost doubling is what you're thinking?
12, 14.
Okay. Let's talk about, yes.
Comment is, we do have, you need to remember, we do have 20 courts already at another facility called the Marionette. So those 7 courts are not the only courts we have.
No, I'm aware of that. I'm just talking about
Myself
Mountain
and some of the other people on this committee have indicated that we feel the city of Sun City needs a total of 45 pickleball courts to accommodate us in the future. Now, it's not sounding real good that that's going to happen, but right now, anything, we get a little confused in that we've got a pickleball club, but not everybody in Sun City is part of the club. So there are people in our club using the courts, and there's the Sun City residents using the courts. Our club, in order to have club activities, needs a minimum of 12 courts to do our activities.
at Mountain View.
Correct.
12 at Mountain View.
Is the minimum.
Minimum. I want to really emphasize the word minimum.
Then you need something for other.
Okay, we have 7. We have 14. We want 12 minimum. Yes.
I need to talk at this point because pickleball and tennis have coincided for many years. But I need to talk about the tennis usage, not just for the club, but for the community.
Can we hold off a minute?
Well, it's part of this.
Okay, go ahead.
The tennis courts that are there now, in every other plan that we've had, are converted to pickleball courts, and there's no tennis at Mountain View. I want to make it very clear that we need, not just for the tennis club, in fact, more so for the tennis community, to have courts on both the south side and north side. Right now we have only courts at the Bell Center, and we have 10 courts at the Bell Center. It's a great facility, but it's only on the north side, and we have people that are not members of the club who want to play tennis, and Mountain View is a great place. We have been doing it there.
Okay, if we keep tennis at Mountain View, right?
Yes.
Now, does the 2 courts work for you?
The 2 courts would work for the community,
Yes.
and it does work for some of the club activities, especially during the winter. We haven't done a lot, admittedly. They are in need of repair and resurfacing, but we've been playing there still.
I hold a different view on that. If you look at the data that we have up there for tennis versus pickleball is big and getting bigger. Tennis is small and getting smaller. I would say it would be, if it's possible, it would be better to convert the tennis to pickleball to meet that demand.
Can you move the screen so I can see the chart? So why don't we do this, folks, today what's important is we are not making a decision. What I'm saying is, what is the big picture goals? One of them that I heard is it would be nice if we could retain 2 tennis courts, okay? By me putting this up here, remember, we're not making a final decision. We're agreeing on what are the things to be considered to retain, okay? Now, yeah.
For pickleball, we also discussed having an enclosed or indoor pickleball course.
Could be your plan.
Put that up there.
I have a plan that I gave you for that.
Is that pickleball as well? Indoor? That's indoor.
Both of them. No club should have exclusive building to itself, like pickleball is that big building for that.
Okay, so,
What I understand you're doing is going through seeing what everybody wants. There could be things that bump into each other.
Yeah.
correct.
And you'll figure out when those things bump into each other, what's.
There's been nothing bumping into each other so far.
Oh, no.
Correction, not one.
Okay, so
While
what
you're
I'm,
making your little chart, put down performing arts center with comfortable seats and put it on the wall.
Yeah.
yes, I'm getting there.
She's working her way down the list.
Okay, so,
Gotta be waking up for that.
okay, so on the pickleball, okay, would it be acceptable if there is a portion that's interior or not conditioned, but in fact shaded and vented? Would that be acceptable?
That should be.
Okay.
It's a plus for what they have now.
Key word there is vented. We've already, the Marinette already has covered shaded courts, but when it's 118 degrees, it's still 116 inside there. It's just you're out of the sun.
They do. It's what the golfers do. Play it early in the morning. Play it in the morning. And that's
So then, could I ask, could there be a potential shaded vented, okay. Could there be a potential that a minimum criteria would be maybe 50% at minimum should be shaded and vented?
Okay.
As a starting point, folks, okay?
That's fine.
Okay, let's go to fitness center, okay? Fitness center, hot button, okay?
That would cover that would be the fitness, everything center for fitness.
Yeah, so what you had is like a building program, okay? If you would allow me just to go through functions, because right now we're not establishing the building, we're establishing what, and then we'll look at the site to see how it works the best, okay? Yes,
I would say every center would have some level of fitness.
right, that makes sense.
Whether, it's not going to be like a bell center, but some level of fitness for the neighbors.
So I'd like to know from you all.
We have an online question.
Has your hand up? Okay.
Karen?
You're on mute.
You're muted, Karen.
Turn your mute up.
I was in the process of writing a comment, so I was just going to come back to the question about pickleball, and I do just want to say that we have shaded courts, and they make an enormous difference. If we didn't have shaded courts, you really could not play pickleball during the summer months from the moment that the sun peeks over the windscreens. And the pavilion at Marinette does allow that, and even on days that we're getting up to 116 to 118 degrees, there were any number of people that played from 6 until 9:30 in the morning. So that is true. Indoor climatized courts would allow for something like 5 times that amount of play. And furthermore, there is also the issue of noise. An indoor court makes the noise kind of a non-issue for the community. Shaded courts, not so much.
Good point.
Any question? Okay, so.
Yes.
Mini golf now?
Keep it.
It's too much fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, really, so we're keeping it?
Yeah. 18 holes. 18 holes as it is.
As it is.
hopefully.
Okay. All right, let's go on then. Indoor spa,
That's true.
okay?
Outdoor spa. I would say a spa.
Outdoor.
Not indoor.
Yeah, outdoor. So we can make it so it's more flexible, like even putting shade on a spa makes all the difference outside, right? Agreed? Outdoor spa only.
It's already shaded.
There have been requests for shade on the pool as well. I bet.
Yeah.
Good idea. And plenty of resort seating. Just a little bit of roof. Let's just put a big blanket over all seats.
Okay, that's the easiest one we did so far. Well, I guess, no. I guess mini golf was the easiest one. Okay, all right. Now we're going to tennis. We kind of talked about tennis. So we're saying that tennis retain 2 courts as needed. Okay, again, guys, remember, don't sit, this is not final, we're just doing a preliminary pass, okay? So we can do a preliminary pass. Okay, then next is horseshoes.
We need at least 12 courts.
Yeah, they're going to be surprised.
When you want to play horseshoes, should you just bring them over there and just play them? Okay, no horseshoes, right? Okay.
No, horseshoes, yes.
At least one horseshoe. Do we have horseshoes anywhere else? Does anybody know?
Yes, we do.
Horseshoes are very inexpensive and take very little room, and if they were shaded, would be greatly used.
So what about horseshoes? I think more people coming up the generations are going to play cornhole than they're going to play horseshoes. So we're going to keep the thrill, maybe because it covers both sports. But I think horseshoes. I don't see it as an actively growing sport, but I know something about it.
Okay, guys, let me suggest this, okay? Are we talking about one horseshoe? Okay, so this is not a big deal spatially. So what if we say there's one, we say a horseshoe cornhole area, right? That's not a lot of real estate. So we can fit that in.
That's good.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about the Performing Arts Center, not the auditorium.
Yeah, before you go there, I don't see lawn bowling on that.
Oh, lawn bowling. There's no lawn bowling up there.
You're right.
That's what I just said.
Okay, lawn bowling, folks. Also a ton of fun. We keep it?
Yeah. So far. How many courts are there? How many facilities do that sport?
We have 5 of them.
I do not know. I do not have that fact.
5 buildings have that? We have a usage of for what?
I see it now.
Anybody want performing arts or an auditorium at Mountain View?
You're kidding me.
Yes, I am kidding you.
Multi-purpose auditorium.
Those are 2 different questions.
Yeah, those are 2 different things.
There are 2 different things.
2 different things.
I know, that's why I put it together.
Performing
Don't put it
Arts
together.
Center.
Okay.
2 parts.
An auditorium and.
You probably don't know.
Those are
and
2
most
separate
people
things.
don't agree, but there's 11
Separate.
performing arts clubs in Sun City, and 9 of them will use a performing arts center.
Okay,
So it's not just the one club.
okay. So the thing right now that's not in this list, before I go to this, is a multi-purpose space. Okay?
Sent you that. Yes, that it would be used for several things. You
Okay,
can have a fitness center in there. You can have indoor volleyball for people that don't want to play volleyball in a pool. You can have basketball for basketball players, which a comment was made before, how excited they were that they would be able to play basketball inside. And it could
can we come back to that? Okay,
Absolutely.
because what I'd like to talk about is a performing arts center or auditorium, okay? What are the characteristics that you'd like here? And then I'm going to add a multi-purpose space, okay? Because right now we've got a fitness center space.
I would just like to remind everyone that the people who are attending remotely, when you are all talking, they cannot hear. And I know you all are champing at the bit to speak. We are going to have town halls. Your opinion is so important to us. But this is very important that she talk to the committee. Thank you.
There's 2 people on the screen with their hands up.
Steve?
Yeah, sorry I didn't get to chime in a little bit on the pickleball, but Marlene, maybe you already captured this and once you've written it down that we haven't been able to see remotely. But I heard the discussion Dan was referring to, and Karen, enclosed pickleball courts. I didn't hear the quantity of courts at both Mountain View and Marinette, I think you were talking about. But there has been discussion on the Long Range Planning Committee, specifically from one Dennis Stokely, about why are we not enclosing the existing structure that's a shaded structure. It has a roof, it has 4 walls on it, and why would we not take an, is it not, this is a question for an architect, you Arlene, is it not cost effective to enclose a partially enclosed existing structure compared to building a new structure? So, and you can answer that question, and then also, shouldn't we do a comparison of using an existing structure enclosed and the comparison of adding a new structure at Mountain View enclosed? Air conditioning I'm referring to.
We'd have to close pickleball for a
Okay,
year.
so there, right now, we're talking about Mountain View only. We're not comparing it to the others. And the discussion had been that pickleball should be a minimum of 12 courts, and a minimum of 50% should be shaded or vented, and shaded and vented. And so what I'm going to suggest, if that ends up happening, there's ways that that can be done depending on the budget, so that the structure can allow for future enclosure once the budgets become available, or you can decide that there's an alternative where you actually fully enclose it and condition it. That is a strictly cost issue, not a site use issue. Okay? So that can be a cost variance. Okay?
Susan?
Sue?
Steve, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, but again, what I was asking for was, can you or would you do a comparison? I know that Karen's saying that the Marinette requires additional parking spaces, but aside from that, and then we could add the parking spaces, maybe Karen into the consideration later, should we not at least understand what the cost of enclosing pickleball courts at Marinette, along with the comparison to cost of new 12 courts enclosed at Mountain View? Just a comparison.
Just to clarify, Steve, right now, we are not evaluating Marinette. If there's an impact of that use on this facility, we'll have to come back to that. What we're trying to do is establish what are the minimum criteria for Mountain View.
And so, and at that point, you're saying that right now, Mountain View, you've ascertained from the group 12 courts enclosed, 50%, 6 of them would be shade cover of some sort, and the other 6 would be air conditioned. Is that what you just wrote down?
No, what we said is right now, and Steve, what I want to repeat is that there's not been a decision made. What we're starting with is, as a criteria for minimum facility, to have a minimum of 12 courts, 6, did I get the right number? 6 of which are shaded and vented. And what I explained is that those can always be changed to have an alternative to be fully enclosed. And we could even have an alternative for 12 to be shaded and covered as a cost alternative later. What we're trying to do right now is establish the criteria for site uses so we can establish how to plan the overall uses on the site.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sue?
Oh, we have another hand.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sue.
Go ahead. Sue?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. We are on Performing Arts Center now, aren't we? Regarding the Performing Arts Center, to me, the number one need for Sun City is a stadium-type seating and a theater-type seating in a venue. I think that is, to me, that's so far behind the times that Sun City does not have a single location in Sun City where we can go somewhere and have theater-type seating. To me, that's the #1 priority for the Performing Arts Center, not just, of course, for the performing arts groups, but also for things like movies and lectures and other things that could be used for. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. What would be the other characteristics of a performing arts center? What are we talking about in terms of number of seats, folks? Are we talking, I'm going to throw out a number. Do you have a number?
I have all kinds of numbers.
Okay, give me the lowest number you have.
The lowest?
Yes.
The lowest number would be 400.
Okay, I was going to say 6.
Yeah, I would say 6.
Next.
300. 300.
We have a question on that.
Okay.
We were told by someone, I don't know who it was, that if you go over $299, you run into all kinds of regulations besides just the number of seats that you have to have. Is there any other regulation in construction that says because you've got over 299 seats, you have to do a whole other process for disabilities?
For what?
For people with disabilities.
For slow floors.
No.
Okay, so it doesn't matter.
Well, here's the fact of the matter, guys. You have to do it, period.
Yes,
No.
we just wanted to know if you have to do something in addition to the normal things if you get
So
big.
there's going to be a limit as to how far you can go vertically, and once you pass that vertical limit, you're going to have an elevator. You're going to have a lift, okay? So there's criteria that applies in many ways with it, including once you get to a certain number of people, you're going to have, depending on where it is in your project, the actual protection of the space from other adjacent buildings is significant because it's a large number of people that needs to have like rated separation walls, if it's not all exterior with clear space around it. So those are big criteria that I'll go through with you once we get to, if you picked the minimum number of seats for a wonderful performing arts center, folks, okay? And I'm not saying that you have to stick to it. Let's pick the minimum. What is the minimum number for a performing arts center?
Wow.
Yes.
Can I ask, we just, we're on the room and spit out numbers?
Let's just go around.
300?
300,
300.
400.
300.
300.
4.
300.
6.
We know it's folks.
400, but we're talking about the smallest part of a performing arts building. It's a seat.
I understand.
We know that.
I understand, but the seating drives a lot in terms of what's
Sure
happening
does.
with the facility. Okay.
300.
400.
Damn.
3.
Okay, so folks, would it be okay for today, Renata, can we start with 300 as a criteria for a minimum?
That's a starting point.
I think our biggest question on that was cost difference between 300, 400, 600.
Yeah.
That was our big concern.
It's cost.
Okay, so the big picture, folks, is on Mountain View. You have very little site area.
That's right.
Okay, and so what I'm trying to do is just get the criteria so I can show you diagrammatically what trade-offs would have to be done in order to provide the, if we try to put everything you're asking for, what does that mean for your site, okay?
Sure.
What this means already for your site is we're gonna have building replacement in 2-story structures, okay? I'll just go there right now.
Oh, got
But
it.
it's okay, you don't have to decide right now. Let's get the,
Sue has her hand up.
Sidebar discussion.
Susan? You're on view. You're on.
Sue, you're on.
You're muted. Just skip her, unmute, put her hand down.
We're wasting time.
all right, so then, other than the actual area for seating, what do you want for backstage, guys? Do you want a full fly?
No.
They've already shot me.
Really?
I won't
Okay.
going,
Okay,
but they shot
okay,
me.
so then, what are we doing backstage? We'll have a stage.
Dressing rooms, makeup rooms, another stage area backstage for rehearsal so that two clubs can rehearse simultaneously. Right.
Is that a minimum?
Yes.
Shots? Wait a second. So let me put it this way. What if we said if there's a space where there could be rehearsals done that is easily accessible from the Performing Arts Building? Could that be a criteria?
Okay, sure.
The reason I'm saying that is that it would give us some options if we do a multi-purpose area, right? It could be available for that kind of use very easily. Does that make sense? Okay. So then what we're going to say is access to separate rehearsal space.
In the green room, but not at a separate location.
Right. You don't want that? You don't want to walk across campus for a green room? Come on.
And restrooms, of course.
One of the other One of the other things that would possibly be needed in a performing arts center when we have, if it's being utilized by singers or such, would be risers and a place to, not so much the risers that obviously we can provide after the fact, but a place to store the risers when not in use in the building.
Yeah, storage.
The balance is on the 300 is the smaller number of seats in use available means the number, it increases the number of performances that have to be given for each showing, which increases the usage of the building and makes it more difficult to schedule around.
Oh, okay, do I have the basics on the Performing Arts Center, folks? Okay.
Say restrooms?
Yeah.
Well, guys, restrooms are required anyway. You don't have to actually tell me. I'm actually.
Just for information, right now, on the site, when you went to visit the site, that metal building right back in the corner, that's our workshop.
Yeah.
Where we build everything for sets and everything. So that would, if that's torn down, that I think, you know, there too.
I thought there were.
Okay, let's talk about multi-purpose. So right now, if we had a fitness center, the one thing I noticed, there's not really club space, right, or meeting space at Mountain View. I don't know if that's an issue at all, right? So then, is there any need for a multi-purpose space that would be like, you know, it could be the size of, I would, for me, it would be twice the size of this room.
Oh.
For what?
So depending on what you're using it for, right? So it's a multi-purpose room. So typically it's a room that can have various functions, that has a movable wall in the middle. No, you don't need it?
No. There's
Okay.
enough small rooms. That's considered a small room. Twice this, it's not that big.
No, what I'm trying to do is, even if you have it right now, I gotta put it on the list. Because that means it's important to have on that site.
We don't have it right now.
We don't have it. We don't have it.
Yes.
Our analysis of utilization is that we have 30% utilization of those spaces.
Okay.
And there's tons of spaces like that, 7/10 of a mile away.
Okay,
Yeah.
so not needed. That was an easy one. Okay. Okay, so now, we have the general list, right? Okay. We have an outdoor spa, which is shaded. We have horseshoes and cornhole. We have mini golf and lawn bowling, okay? We have a fitness center, which we agree is going to be one that is flexible and a different size than what you have right now. We'll suggest some alternatives for the size, but in general, so you can visualize, you have something that's at least half of what a typical, just basic fitness center would be. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So double it. 2 times existing minimum kind of thing, right? Okay, just to give you a sense of scale, okay? And then...
She's got a note right there.
Would it be about the size of this room?
It'll be bigger than this. Proportionally, this is too narrow. So the proportions and stuff are also very important, right? Okay, about double. I think we decided there's no pickleball, right? I can't resist, I shouldn't do that, but okay.
So you're going to do it on the softball.
Pickleball, we're gonna do, and we're gonna look at 12 minimum. And then when we look at the spacing, it will allow for structure to be around it, so that the site placement would allow for that to be done. And then if we're thinking about structure, we also have to think about the areas around it, so that we're allowing for clearances if we need to for code, okay? The other thing about once we build a structure, then parking is required, okay? Right now, you've got some good parking proportions, okay, but once we take a look at what we're adding, we'll take a look at what the impact is, okay? Swimming, yes, 2 pools, resort, fitness, and a sport pool with lane and sport capability, right? Okay. Well, and the other ones are just characteristics of those 2 pools, okay? They're not another pool, which is going to have potential for shade, and then a potential for a 3-lane lap pool, right? As part of one of those 2 pools. The sport lane and sport pool. Make sense?
It's an aqua fitness.
Okay. What's that?
Hey, includes aqua fitness there.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Performing arts, we're talking minimum 300 seats, step seating, stage, dressing, makeup, etc., storage, okay? And we don't need another multi-purpose area for general functions that are not programmed right now. Yes?
We lost basketball, dance floor. Where did that go?
So that would have to be the multi-purpose space.
Right.
We said no.
We think of multi-purpose, I guess, is what you think is multi-purpose.
Yeah.
Basically, there's
Multi-purpose is not a meeting.
a little thing will be earlier.
So typically, what I would see in multi-purpose for a community center like this would be able to be more for dance and things, not basketball. If you're talking about basketball, that's like a gym. You know, that's a whole different criteria. Do you want a basketball court?
No.
We talked earlier about basketball and indoor volleyball and what were the other things?
Indoor volleyball, not everybody wants to play volleyball in the pool, and that's why I sent you that, because it gives you several activities. The last plan that they did, they had the auditorium that covered all these activities, and it, the original plan did cover a multi-purpose auditorium that covered all those activities with a wood floor.
Okay, let me be clear though, what we're talking about here on this auditorium is not a multi-purpose space. It's more of an actual performance space with a stepped floor. It's not
Just
multi-purpose.
you're not talking about the performing arts.
I am.
Yeah.
Let me ask this.
You're talking about a second space?
We had in one of our options that was presented by Susan Chatterley that had Performance Arts Center separate from the auditorium area.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're talking here. She presented this piece of paper and an email that included a space of possibly using the auditorium, not tearing it down, but converting it, not to a Performing Arts Center, but to a other kind of facility. So the alternative would be having that and having a Performing Arts Center somewhere in the area where the pools are, or in that space that was that large space you showed.
Okay, so then before we decide what we're going to use every building for, let's agree on functions if we could.
Yeah.
So right now I'm hearing that in fact you do want a multi-purpose space that's separate from the performing arts space. Is that correct?
I think it's a possibility. Yes, it's a possibility still. It's not a no.
I think it's a no.
It's a no too.
There's no data to support building a separate room like that.
I don't see it.
Her email showed. Her email showed.
And nobody else has.
Well,
Apparently the last board saw it.
Well-
After many studies and a lot of time and $500,000, they figured that out.
But this committee hasn't seen it.
Well,
Yes, ma'am,
but-
how can I help you?
I haven't seen it.
I thought we were the committee making decisions and not the board.
Okay, folks, here's a, I got a copy on that. Okay, so what I would like,
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you're a committee of members. Decisions will be made by the committee of members. The excellent co-chairs that you have have done a superb job, okay? But the hard work and the heavy water has to be carried by you. And if she hasn't made it clear to you, the architect engineer hasn't made it clear to you, everything is not going to fit. And so you have to make the difficult choices based on the guidance that she will provide to you, based on the information you're providing to her
Right.
today.
So in response to that, I don't see that based on what we've decided, we have said no to utilize this kind of a facility in the auditorium. I don't think we've said that yet.
I don't think that you should combine the use and saying it's in the existing building. Let's just talk about function first, if we could, okay? And then let me help you establish what is reasonable and that could work well, okay? So this is a multi-purpose space, okay? It can be used for various sports. It can be used for activities. You can take the nets down and you can have a function, etc., okay? So my question is, do we put a multi-purpose space back on the list of things that you would like to consider for this Mountain View site?
I say yes.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I say no.
So just have
How many no's do we need?
Okay, how many want us to include a multi-purpose for initial study?
Well, what's initial study?
I'm going to explain that right now.
Yeah,
Okay?
I mean, it should be.
Okay, it's about 50-50. So here's the thing.
May I have just one more second to say something? One of the reasons why your co-chairs went out and looked at, what do you call that? Seating, retractable seating, was to have that retractable seating in the Performing Arts Center so that, by the way, it looks wonderful, so they could be pushed back for the dancers on this wonderful wooden floor that we've been talking about. At no point was there a conversation, except at the last meeting, when you brought up part of the fact of the gym. We've not had conversations about putting dancers in the gym. In fact, this group voted, straw vote, that they did not want to have a gym. So we're going back in time now and trying to bring the gym back in. On behalf of Karen, who I don't think is still with us, she would tell you we have 28, am I correct, 28 multi-purpose floors for this kind of activity. There's really no reason why this community needs a 29th. Ladies and gentlemen, you will decide when you decide. Part of the problem today is this architect engineer is trying to gather information, and you're trying to make the decisions today.
No.
Listen,
We're just trying to get her information.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. But you'll have time to hash out how you feel about what you want to do. Okay? Let's get the information that you need first, and then you'll be in a better position to make your decisions.
The argument has always been that the space available, the flat space available, does not work when you have 500 dancers out there. They don't work at Fairway. They don't work at any place except for Sundial. We got bumped out because the floor's being refinished at Sundial.
How many people?
When you've got 500 dancers, like line dancers alone, they get bumped out, they try to cram into someplace like Fairway. It doesn't happen.
Are you saying that one of the criteria for the multi-purpose room would be for 500 line dancers?
We need, it doesn't have to be, it's for any dancers. We've got over 2,000.
No, but we have to establish a criteria.
Okay, 500. 300 or 600 dancers.
Okay, so that is gigantic.
It is.
Okay.
We're the largest line dance club in the world.
So all I'm saying, the reason I'm saying that right now is that this is a very, very small site. And so I just want to make sure that that's what you're thinking is appropriate for Mountain View.
No.
Okay?
Yeah.
Don't you do that performance now at Sundial?
What?
The dancing, isn't the line dancing done at Sundial?
60 times in a year, line dance got bumped out of there. 60 times. This is a large club. Our country dance club, when we get bumped out, you know, there is no place to go. You only get half your people that show up, less than half actually. We only had 60 people show up at the dance at Mountain View because of the floor.
Well, of course, that's strictly temporary down there while the remodeling's taking place at Sundial to make it a very nice facility.
Okay, but
So that's,
then again,
and in 2 weeks, you're going to be good to go.
all right, but asking it's like asking for just the dance floor. That's self-serving as heck. That's so self-serving, just like the pickleball one in the entire climate-controlled pickleball building. You know, that's about ridiculous. You know, about as ridiculous as us asking for just a plain, just
Okay, so
I'm going to leave it. I don't want you attacking some other club. You make your point
okay.
for your...
All right, I will make my point. The point is that...
Okay, for line dancing, guys? Okay, if you wanted a line dancing area,
just know...
what are we talking? How many people?
I just find it hard to swallow building another facility for that, when maybe we could improve scheduling at the Sundial facility, which is a beautiful facility with just a remodeled floor.
I'm going to say, we have tried that. I have tried 2 times to get our dance moved to Sunday because we could move over to the next day. We can't have it. I have been refused it because the crew leaves at 8 o'clock, 8:30. So we can't stay there for our evening dance.
So if we spend a couple dollars on overtime for the crew, we don't have to build a multi-million-dollar building.
Now, that would help us, but it wouldn't help other people.
Just to kind of summarize what you're saying.
Okay. So now what I want to know is, do I need to have line dancing as a priority for Mountain View?
No.
Okay, so that means that multi-purpose room is not a priority, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so now we have to finish, we're going to do priorities. We're going to start with what is agreed, right? So we're going to have an outdoor spa, for sure?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Not indoor.
Outdoor.
Outdoor only.
Outdoor spa.
Yeah.
The two moves.
Okay. We're going to have horseshoes and cornholes.
Yes.
If it fits.
Okay, this is one thing. Okay. We're going to have mini golf and lawn bowling. Do you want to put it right here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This
Sure.
is a yes for sure, right? This is going to be in the scheme no matter what.
What is it?
The fitness center.
The fitness center? You can't read my printing?
No.
Okay, I'll do better next time.
You were old enough to remember cursive.
Speak for yourself.
Hey, you guys, should we keep pickleball?
No.
Okay.
Okay, to keep it before.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's for sure. That goes out. Just put it next to those. Okay? And then I got the sense that swimming with 2 pools, we'll have to decide size of these, okay?
Yep.
But that existing pool is not going to remain,
Correct.
correct?
Why not?
Yeah, it's too-
Okay, I'll look at it, but proportionally it didn't look good for what you're talking about. That's the only reason.
The shape and wasted space.
So the thing is, once you go in a pool and change the shape, it's almost like you better start over. You know, it's a lot of money to recut it,
Sure is.
but we can take a look at it, okay? And then, this is out. And 2 tennis courts. We agree?
Yes.
Okay. So now, it appears to me that is performing arts being able to be done at this site, is that a priority that's agreed upon amongst you all?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Can we consider this within the existing building?
Yes.
Yes.
It can be done.
I don't see how, but it's a miracle.
With that 1999
Diane was saying she could maybe focus it.
Yes.
It would be, if they decide not to do the Performing Arts Center there and have to do it, and do it over at Lakeview, if they would put the wood floor in there, that would help immensely. That would take care of times when we cannot get sundial because of the sun bowl. If they get moved from the sun bowl for weather, they get moved over to sundial.
So my question is, if the Performing Arts Center, this is going to be one of those, okay, we're not deciding right now, okay? Let's say there is a new Performing Arts Center built on a new site, okay? Is there any reason why there's going to be a Performing Arts Center on this site?
No.
Okay.
We only need one.
Okay, there's only one, so now it's going to be, where is that? And then the next question is, if it's not here, is there any reason to retain that existing building?
No, you can with the wood floor.
With the wood floor, you're repurposing. You're repurposing.
The building could go, okay? But there's stuff we could do, and it was kind of, we'll take a, eventually the condition, okay? So what we have is must-have and maybe, correct?
Performing arts is must-have.
Performing arts, either here or Mountain View. What I'm saying is that the condition is, where is it? We don't know yet, okay? And we'll take a look at the space implications of the things that you think you must have and see what that means for a Performing Arts Center. Does that make sense?
No.
So,
For 60 years, nobody else cared about Mountain View until they figured out you're going to tear it down and get something new. So you're displacing the one club that used it for over 60 years.
you're talking about Performing Arts?
I would like to say something on behalf of performing arts. I believe that all things equal, we should have performing arts at Mountain View because partly of what Bill is saying. And it would be done in a more timely fashion than having to go through the complex. I think John Best used that terminology for Lakeview, considering Lakeview and performing arts, where it's going to be, and all of those things. Of course, we still have to look at that. But
So if I say that, let's say Lakeview has a very reasonable approach that could accommodate a Performing Arts Center, okay? Would that provide the performing arts functions that are required between the two sites?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I'm asking.
Yes.
Because right now,
Timing is important.
what we're going to show is an option, right? Those must be in every scheme.
Yeah.
Okay. What would be an option if the site was modified so that if that could be located elsewhere? That's all I'm saying. Okay?
What I'm saying is move performing arts over there and take pickleball and put it over there to see where it could go.
Okay, so right now, folks, what I'm hearing, okay, is that's a must-have. Pickleball.
No, what I'm saying, performing arts is a must-have.
Bill, I assume you're saying you want to keep the historical location.
Yeah.
That's what you're
Way
looking
I've
for.
understood from being here for everything week. Number one, there's the Performing Arts Center. Depending on its location is whether we'll get all of that. So if it's determined that the Performing Arts stays at Mountain View, some of that's going to disappear. We know it. But if it goes to a different location, we can handle all that. So it depends on where we decide to put the Performing Arts.
Right.
Okay, so that's not what I heard? Okay? So we'll take a look at that. And what I heard is that this is a must-have at Mountain View.
After you know where you're putting the Performing Arts. Because Performing Arts, this whole group, as long as I've been here, the focus has been, we need a theater. The diversion has been, where is it going?
Okay, and then there could be trade-offs about, how you're doing it. Is it a redo of existing, or is it new construction, et cetera?
Right.
But I'm saying right now, based on what I'm hearing right now, right, we'll take a look at the study and see. But I'm hearing this is the must-have, this is the maybe.
At Mountain.
At Mountain View,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Did you say, is it going to be new construction or a redo?
I did.
I don't think we talked about a redo.
No, we did not. It's my job to show you that you can make that building a performing arts center.
That's correct.
Okay?
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that we keep everything like it is. You know, there could be an addition to it. There can be modification to it. But with 300 seats, probably.
We just want it to look like a theater, not like a gymnasium with retractable seats.
Yeah, understood.
We don't want to go to the basketball game. We want to go to the theater.
Understood. Okay, I think we all worked on it, right?
You have one question?
Tell us what
Sue?
Yeah, I keep hearing where the current plays and such are done at Mountain View being referred to as a multi-purpose building in the future. And I see that as two different things. I don't see how we can have a performing arts center with the proper seating and facilities they need at the same time as we can have a flat multi-purpose space. That's two different things. If we're going to do a performing arts center, we need to do a performing arts center, not a gymnasium with a stage on one end.
Yeah, that's been made quite clear, and the multi-purpose room is out of the options right now.
Yeah.
It's not part of the options. It's a theater and the other items that are the priorities. Okay? Okay, so everybody, you've been fantastic. I know that I have repeated stuff that, maybe you've already done 3 times or 50, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this, and then we're going to do a quick site study. Next week, we're talking about Lakeview, okay? Any questions or general comments?
Thank you.
No, I appreciate your help. Have you seen any of our video of the meetings we had in the last 2 months? Okay, you did, all right. Good.
So that wraps up our meeting for today. I'd like everybody to give Marlene a hand. And same time next week.
Here?
Here.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.